Is your body image affecting your health and relationships?
What is body image and how do we actually improve it? That's what we're going to be talking about today, right, Heather?
That and things like fat phobia.
Hello. Yeah.
Body shaming.
And health at every size, what that actually means.
So body image is your perceived notion of how you look or your belief about how you look. It doesn't have to be rational, it doesn't have to be accurate, and actually most times your perceived body image compared to how others see you from the outside doesn't usually line up. However, what you do perceive your body image to be will affect every aspect of your life.
So again, it's our internal opinion of our outer physical body. So like Heather's saying, sometimes, I think we both have worked with clients, individuals who, by all outward appearances, people would deem them as either models or fitness gurus or whatever, like beautiful, beautiful people. And yet, inside, it didn't feel like that to them, or there's a certain level of perfection or whatever's going underneath it that they didn't feel good about themselves. So regardless of how you look, people can still struggle with body image. In fact, there's 10 different...
It's already hitting me.
I know, right?
You should see what that's going to do to my body image.
There's the top 10 body parts that people actually dislike the most. Ready for them?
Belly.
Skin first.
Skin.
Hair.
Boobs.
Nose. Weight. Chest. Or boobs or nipples, yes. Stomach. Eyes. Thighs. Teeth. And legs.
I don't think that there's anything left, James, except
There's
maybe
lots
toes
of
and
body
fingers.
parts left. Well, there's genitals left.
Oh, yeah, or backside. My lower back. Lower back did not make the list.
Hello. And virtually anything, right?
Yeah. But in all seriousness, it can affect your health. And the way that a body image gets developed is how you were raised, what kind of environment you were raised in, what was continuously reinforced, as well as social media, reality TV, advertising, and women, heterosexual women and gay men are the most affected in terms of having negative body image.
Well, and let's look at it, right? For a lot of women, a lot of gay men, we have been sort of the oppressed objects of the sort of privileged majority, right? So what happens is oftentimes we've developed this internal sense that we have value through what we look like, through our sexuality, and so we've used that in a way to try and gain more visibility, empowerment, but in ways that don't always work well for us.
And it's also what's reinforced socially as being celebratory, right? Every commercial, every advertisement, every celebrity, I lost 30, and everyone's celebrating for their weight loss and awesome, which of course is so opposite of the way it was back in the day before you and I were even a conception, maybe
planet.
even your parents too, for that matter. Yeah. But there's that TV series that's on right now called Harlots on Hulu, which looks at brothels in the 1700s.
Right.
And, one of the characters on there is a large woman, and she's like one of the most sought after, sexual, full-bodied, zoftic and lovely.
Voluptuous bodies were sort of sought after.
Well, of course, because it showed health, right?
That they had access to food and, right?
Exactly, and voluptuous was the in thing. Obviously, at some point that transitioned, and globally, this is a rising number in terms of fat phobia and things like that as being like the undesirable, the unhealthy thing.
Except it's all pervasive, and it's even coming into communities that didn't otherwise suffer from it. So a lot more straight men are also identifying as having some sort of body image issues. Lesbian women as well, and people of all genders and sexual orientations, people of all ages as well, right? It's happening at younger and younger ages.
Yep.
So, and it's often connected to, You know,
again, how you were raised, social environment, pressures, and then repetitive self-talk that we get locked into, which is what we'd like to get into, which is, when we're looking at body image, of course, there's negative body image and then positive body image and or learning how to create a positive. But James and I wanted to talk about the negative first because, having a negative body image leads to feelings of worthlessness, depression, eating disorders.
At its worst, it can even be body dysmorphic disorder, where there's so much obsession about how we look that we don't go into certain social environments. We might maybe isolate. We might spend an inordinate amount of time mirror checking or trying to change our bodies in ways that feel acceptable to us. It can just take up so much time and space.
And avoiding social activities. I mean, even wearing bathing suits. I know so many women that are just like, I'm just not thin enough to wear bathing suits.
Getting summer ready, right? Yep. All these terms that reinforce it.
And it affects intimacy and love life. If a person is not feeling good in their body, and even if their partner is adoring of them, if their self-image, if their body image isn't positive, it's going to affect the love life and being intimate with your partner.
Yeah, if we're not feeling sexy in our own bodies or appreciate the bodies that we're in, then it's hard to relate to others from that experience, right?
And it can be very frustrating for your partner or people who care about you because when you're in a negative body image space, you're so locked into this story, this belief, that you have an inability to actually receive praise. It just lands on crickets,
It could be like the hungry ghost sort of analogy, right? Where you're constantly seeking validation or needing to hear or whatever, but it goes right through you. You actually don't absorb it. You don't feel nourished by it. It's just this never-ending toxic sort of environment internally.
And so James and I wanted to look at one of the emotions that's one of the main culprits for this negative.
It's a culprit of a lot of things.
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, it is.
Yeah.
But in terms of body image and negative body image, shame, which just loves to attach like some bad disease to a lot of different aspects of our life, really gets hooked and locked into our negative body image. And it's important to just take a brief look or understanding of that particular emotion because it becomes habitual. And again, this is a deeper underlying cause that if you, even though only 10% of the population seeks help for negative body image, if you do decide to dig deep, you will often find that shame sits there, which is a feeling of worthlessness, of not being good enough. It sits there, as this hungry beast.
Character attack of ourselves, right? So it often operates in silence, in secrecy. It's something that we don't often share with others, or if we do, it's only a fraction of what we actually experience. So, shame can be an insidious sort of thing.
And what it causes us to do, right? It causes us to withdraw, or it causes us to be aggressive. And then if we can't let that aggression out in a safe way, we often take shame, that big nasty character, and then we'll turn it inward where it is safe to attack. And then it gets into, as you were saying, this sort of secret, repetitive, negative self-talk that just keeps getting reinforced by behavior and highly charged emotion.
It can be so habituated that it's on autopilot, that we don't even necessarily recognize it. Sometimes it comes with words, other times it's just a felt sense of like, ugh, right? So it like Heather's saying, it can weave its way into so many different areas of how we are in the world and really limit our fullness, our ability to be happy and enjoy relationships as fully as we might otherwise.
And again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about body image and how it's affecting your health and getting a sense of what your perceived view of your body image is, how it can be negatively affecting your relationships, your social life, your health and well-being, your social life. That it affects mostly women, heterosexual women and gay men, even though it's expanding. They're actually considering it an epidemic, I've read in a lot of articles.
Well, and you think about it, there is a multi-billion-dollar industry to help people with their felt sense of their attractiveness, right? The beauty industry, as it relates to skin or hair or, moisture, there is so much money in this business because we all suffer from this to some extent. living in a society and culture that values certain looks over others, that values certain weights and body shapes and sizes over others.
What that translates into is there's no investment from social media, advertising, anything to have you be satisfied with your body image.
Yeah.
There is no win for them.
Right.
So you have to make the choice to start to develop a positive body image if you want to break free from the chains that are binding you.
Right. And it can feel like it's not a choice for a lot of people too, right? Because it's like, well, I want to feel better about my body. I just don't, and I don't know how.
Exactly.
Which is why we're doing this topic.
Exactly. So you did this great workshop, right, with HAES.
Oh, yeah. Early in my career as a therapist, I took a weekend workshop with a self-identified fat therapist who talked about a particular model of looking at body shapes and sizes. It's called Health at Every Size, HAES. And it's sort of what sprung out of the fat movement that basically looks at that we all, regardless of shape or size, age, anything like that, right? We all need a certain level of exercise and good nutrition in order to be healthy. And what the diet industry tends to do is give us this structure, this template that is not sustainable.
Correct.
That is not natural for our bodies to be able to sustain. And so this yo-yo dieting, this gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, is part of actually the health consequences that's oftentimes associated with obesity. But if you take out, if you factor in, if someone of a larger size is having good exercise and eating mostly good, nutritious meals, that those risk factors really calm down substantially.
And so developing a positive body image is not about you getting to that perfect size. We want you to try to shift gears a little bit. Getting to a positive body image starts with accepting where your body is and sort of embracing. Some people are always going to be a little larger. Some people are going to be a little smaller. And so what actions can you take to start to appreciate how you are, assuming that how you are is not affecting your health? Meaning, I grew up in a family that had very large people in it, and they still do, and I love them to death. But I do have 2 aunts that died from diabetic obesity. And so, being obese was not good for their body. And they would go on diets and off diets, and they knew what was good and what wasn't good for them. But it didn't mean that they couldn't be a little bit heavier or whatever it was. But there was no sense of finding a positive body image. And so, yes, you do need to change things like step away from the sense of always having to diet and start looking at embracing what you are, and then learning just how to do lifestyle changes, eating better foods. But to make it sustainable, as you were saying, I think you also need to look at the causes or start to discover why it is, if you're at a health risk, right? High blood pressure, diabetes, depression. So your
sugar intake, those kinds of things. So part of what we're talking about here is first step is an awareness of how your body image, your poor body image was created, right? It's recognizing the messages that we receive from our peers, from news, from social media, from whatever sources, right? And recognizing that those are outside forces that are not a great indication of of our worth and our value.
And you've taken them on and championed them, right? You had mentioned that a lot of these things could be subconscious. We need to find patterns, right? So what is your pattern as it relates to your body image? Where was that software created? And how the heck can we start to just update it a little bit?
Well, and part of that is recognizing that, again, we have worth, inherent worth or value regardless of how we look. I know this is a very difficult concept for us, especially in Los Angeles, right?
And easy to say, flows right off the tongue.
Sure, easy, yeah. But to continually to reinforce that, to be around people that are like that, right? That have that sort of mentality, or to get them on our side, right? This is about changing the way, not just our external environment, our physical bodies, but internally how we feel about ourselves. So it's doing it not from this fat phobic, shaming of different body shapes and sizes.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Exactly. It comes from a place of a desire to be the healthiest you possible.
Whatever that you is.
Which includes how you treat yourself inside.
Correct.
Right? Starts there maybe even, right?
And so there are just some simple actions you can start to take to help create a sustainable, positive body image, which is what James and I are trying to help you to do. You can take action by becoming aware of some of the roots, right? Grab a therapist, a life coach, someone who's going to help you find out, like, where did this pattern start, this sort of negative body image pattern? And then once you discover that, feel free to start moving on, because sometimes people get caught up in that past and then they want to use that to whip themselves further and shame themselves from the trauma or the environment they were raised in or blaming the media or whatever it is.
Yeah, this is not about sustaining perpetual victimhood. This is about recognizing how we got here so that we can actually make a difference in the present moment and be self-empowered.
Yes. So find a great coach or a therapist to help you get to that root, then continue to move forward. Catch the negative self-talk or the negative behaviors. Negative meaning, is this thing I'm saying about my body, is this action I'm taking supporting my health and well-being, or is it tearing it to shreds? It's a very simple question to answer.
Yeah, for example, are we judging certain foods as good or bad? Versus some being more nutrient dense and some not being. Like, you know, it's about recognizing the ways that we sort of have these absolute ways of thinking. That when we see someone who's of a bigger body shape or size, do we automatically jump to the idea that they are not healthy, that they don't have discipline or control? Are we judging ourselves for the same kinds of things, right? So it's about taking our perspective off autopilot and recognizing how we're talking to ourselves about these things and doing it different, right? This is about bringing in pieces of gratitude for different areas, different aspects of who we are, the fact that our bodies can give us pleasure, that they can heal, that they can experience all kinds of movement, and our bodies are amazing things, right?
Which was number 3, which you went right into naturally, which is start focusing on good things, right?
Gratitude.
Yep. Focus on the things that you are excelling about. If you're not feeling great with your body image, do you draw well? Do you have a job you love? Do you like
your little pinky fingernail, right?
Exactly.
Start somewhere.
Do you like walks
anywhere.
on the beach? What are things that make you feel good? You have to repetitively shift focus. So you catch the negative self-talk, you find the good stuff, and you just start gently shifting focus.
And this is
over
about
time.
perfection, right? This is about course correcting, sheep herding. When you're like, go off the rails, you're like, oh, wait. With compassion, with mindfulness, being like, oh wait, how do I want to treat myself right now in this moment?
When I catch negative self-talk happening, I always sit there and I like to use a little bit of humor, because it's not just being like, oh, I'm going to focus on the positive and pretend that I'm not being told that I should lose 10 pounds. You know, it's not ignoring it, but it is sitting there going, oh, thank you so much for telling me that I'm a big chubbo. Inner Heather or whatever it is. Thank you so much for sharing. That's just not something I want to focus on. So you don't have to ignore the negative self-talk. You can acknowledge it, but also not focus on it. I tend to deflect with humor when I catch my own space doing that.
Sense of humor.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for making me feel like shit. I appreciate it. Anyway, let's go take a walk, because that makes me feel good. Right? So you don't have to ignore it, but you also don't have to focus on it.
Right. So that's part of self-care internally, right? That's about recognizing the things that we appreciate and enjoy, course correcting. And also part of that self-care mechanism is to recognize that hopefully, some of the behaviors that we can change over time is if we can eat healthier and healthier meals in terms of nutrient-dense foods, maybe 60, 70, 80% of the time of the day, and give ourselves some slack or flexibility with some other things, right? This is about having a more consistent, regular exercise routine, whether that's walking around the block or picking up a couple dumbbells or dancing in your apartment or whatever it happens to be, something that hopefully over time can feel good.
And what he's talking about is lifestyle change, and that's number 4. So that's another positive action you can take. Do small things over time. Saying, I'm never going to eat pizza again, I'm only going to eat veggie sticks, you're just setting yourself up for a problem. Matter of fact, go buy the pizza. Instead of buying the pie, buy 2 or 3 slices, and then start your meal with all your veggies. Like, eat as many veggies as you want, and then see how many slices of pizza you want. I always tell my clients, I'm like, don't tell yourself you can't have something. It's either a setup for now or it's a setup for later. Just maybe buy a little less of it. Start with something really healthy, take a break or so, then go to the stuff you really want and see if you want as much of it as you thought, right? Nutritional supplements are also really important because, for example, cheese has a lot of calcium or dairy has a lot of calcium in it. You just may be needing a calcium magnesium supplement. And so if you start taking calcium magnesium, and you start giving the body some of what it needs, you may crave less of the foods that are giving you the negative foods, right? Like too much dairy can be a problem. So look into nutritional supplements as well.
Another step is to have social support around this, right?
Groups.
So it's about being around like-minded people who also want to be very, very kind about our body shape and size as we age, right? Because it changes, it shifts. So this is about limiting our exposure to maybe fitness magazines or
reality TV shows where it's all about being thin and beautiful.
Right. With social media where we do this social comparison thing. This is about limiting exposure to those kinds of things and increasing exposure to greater acceptance, appreciation, and compassion for who we are, our bodies included.
When you get caught up, they were doing studies that show that the younger kids that watch a lot of these superficial-based reality TV shows that are all about beauty and body and power and money, that it actually affects their image, their body image, their self-worth. And so it's not so much that, oh, well, that's just what I like. No, not necessarily, but it is what you're used to. And our point is that you can change your pattern and you can get used to something that makes you feel a little bit better. And so make a choice, groups and what you're choosing to influence. You can, dosomething.org, right? The healthy body image, those kinds of things. Do something that supports the change you're seeking, that is not sabotaging the change that you're seeking. Right.
There's a lot of groups, even within social media, Facebook groups and things or people that you can follow that have messages, body positive messages. So seek those out, do some research, and I hope this helps.
Yeah, and then if you're a partner, if you're in a relationship and you're dealing with someone, just real quick, who has a negative body image and it's affecting your relationship, don't take on their cause, but do champion their cause if they're trying to change. There's a difference between being in their team and then being codependent. So you just need to be patient, be on their team, support them, don't criticize and work against them. Again, that patience thing is a big one. It takes time to undo these kinds of deeply embedded patterns.
Hello, and just a little addendum to that. If you are only supporting someone as they lose weight or change their body shape or size, that's usually not great because most of us will gain that weight back and some.
Exactly.
Because we're not doing things necessarily that are sustainable. So this is about not just giving positive reinforcement for those kinds of changes, but for someone's, image and acceptance and embracing the body that they're in today.
Give your support lovingly, freely, and without judgment.
Ooh, I love that. Bye, everyone.
Bye.